我身后的大家看到的呢，这是清华园。清华园呢是晚清的一处皇家园林，它建园1707年，是康熙年间呢流传到现在的呢比较完整的一处皇家园林。1909年呢，清政府呢决定设立留美学务处，然后呢，并且附设留美业馆，向美国呢去选送了一批合格的留美人才，然后把这个清华园呢就作为留美学务处的那个办公的地方，然后呢，留美学务处呢下设留美业馆，后来呢就是今天的清华学堂跟清华大学，这就是清华呢相当于最早的一个校址。
Professor Jin Fujun has just given us the history of the building we've just seen and are about to see, and I want to welcome you all to Tsinghua University. Tsinghua University is one of China's great universities, one of the world's great universities, and it began in the quarters behind me, a set of royal gardens and royal houses from 1707 during the Kangxi realm, which became, when the university was established in 1911, an area of administration, and it is today one of the central meeting parts of Tsinghua University. But this great international university known for science and engineering, and now also again for the humanities and the arts, had royal origins and rather humble and beautiful origins. It is called the Gongziting because when viewed from the air, the buildings have the shape of the Chinese character Gong for work. It became the first home of the Office of Student Affairs of the new Tsinghua College in 1911, an office that was then known by the students as the Yamen. It is now the office of the president of the university. Presidents are very wise to choose the very best real estate that they can to have their offices, and President Chen Jining's offices are behind me here at the Gongziting at Tsinghua. To reflect a bit on the history of Tsinghua, you can also see behind me the calligraphy of Mao Zedong with his famous saying, 为人民服务, to serve the people. Behind me is a place where Liang Qichao, the great reformer of the movement of 1898, one of the leading, perhaps the most influential political thinker of the 20th century in China, lived and taught when he was part of the Guoshuiyuan, the center or academy of classical studies here at Tsinghua University. We think of Tsinghua University today primarily as a place of extraordinary engineering and science and technology, but in the 1920s, it was at the absolute heart of studying both East and West, the Chinese classics through Western methodology. Liang Qichao was one of its leaders. Chen Yingke, who studied at Harvard, Berlin, taught here at Tsinghua University as well, and lived in this very traditional setting before marching out to teach the students and speak to them in an American-style auditorium of the new university of the 1920s. We're here at the back of the Gongziting, this beautiful imperial garden surrounded by a southern Chinese-style rock garden, Youshan Youshui. And we see the origins of the name of Tsinghua, the Tsinghua Yuan, the Tsinghua Garden behind us. Many universities have rather prosaic names. Harvard University is named for its first donor. Tsinghua has a rather more beautiful name. You can see its origins here, Shui Mu Tsinghua. The water and the trees are pure and flowering. If you look behind me, you will see a building that looks very much like American academic architecture. It's the Grand Auditorium, built in 1917, at a time when it could hold in its 1,200 seats every member of the Tsinghua community, students, faculty, administrators, built indeed by an American architect. There is an American origin to Tsinghua University that's actually very important. When the Qing dynasty lost the Boxer War, it was required to pay to the United States an extraordinary indemnity, and to the other powers, some $30 million to the United States. And Secretary of State John Hay became convinced that this was an exorbitant sum, and he convinced President Roosevelt, who somehow convinced the American Congress, to return some of this money to China, to return it to the Qing, some $10.8 million, so that this money could be used to send and support Chinese students who would study in American universities. An extraordinarily far-sighted goal. Tsinghua Xuetang, Tsinghua Imperial College, began for this particular purpose as a preparatory school to prepare young Chinese to study in American universities. Started as an imperial college in April 1911, it became Tsinghua College in 1912 after the Republican Revolution. It would become a full university really only in 1924, and you can see the university buildings, which would be the envy of any university in the world in the 19-teens and 20s. This lovely auditorium behind me, classroom buildings to the left. Far over here, a building still called the Tsinghua Xuetang, where the great Guoshueyuan of the 1920s and 1930s was housed. The original science building over to this side. So Tsinghua has this extraordinary history. It started its own graduate school, really, in 1929, and having become by then Guoli Tsinghua Daxue, one of the great national universities of the national government, of the Republican government, under Chiang Kai-shek, under Chiang Kai-shek. All of its students and faculty who could, and who were patriotic enough to do it, would leave Beijing, which was then Beiping, in 1937 and 1938, when Tsinghua, with other great Chinese universities, became part of United Southwest University, Lianda, to keep learning, keep studying, and keep teaching during the anti-Japanese struggle that would last for 8 years. After the war, of course, the communists would win the Civil War, and Tsinghua University, as we'll see from a different architectural point of view, would become a Soviet-style university. Its humanities distinctions of the Guoshueyuan would come to a crashing end. It would become what you might think of as a polytechnic in the Soviet model, a fine and strong college and university of science and engineering, but its social science departments would be closed, its scholars moved to other departments, in many cases purged, and Tsinghua would not regain its eminence in the social sciences and humanities really until late in the 20th century. What does this university stand for? What are its mottos? And what are its beliefs? The official motto of Tsinghua University is 自强不息，厚德载物, which is officially translated as self-discipline and social commitment. The class of 1920 had a simpler idea for what education was about and for what engagement in society would mean. They wrote, 心胜语言, actions speak louder than words. Or as they wrote on the back, in Latin, facta non verba. We're here in front of the original gate of Tsinghua College, built in 1911, when the Qing was entering its final year of rule. This gate would survive extraordinarily well, better in many ways than the university. It would survive the war, it would survive the collapse of the national government and the arrival of the communists, it would survive the Sovietation of Tsinghua University, but it would not survive the Cultural Revolution when it would be torn down and replaced by a statue of Chairman Mao. Remarkably, Chairman Mao is gone, at least from this spot, and the Great Gate of Tsinghua, now Tsinghua University, would be rebuilt. There are a number of other universities in China where statues of Chairman Mao still can be found, guarding their entrance. One president of one of these universities, I had the time to ask him, the occasion to ask him, why do you still have a statue of Chairman Mao on your campus? And he said to me in a quiet voice, well, we missed our opportunity to take it down in the 1980s. So we're here in front of the first building built expressly for the new Tsinghua Xuetang, the new Tsinghua Imperial Academy. And you can see from the letters at the top, that's what it says, Tsinghua Xuetang, Xuantong Xinhai. In the Xinhai year of the Xuantong Emperor's reign, which as it turned out would be the last year of the Xuantong Emperor, who would be, as we know, the last emperor of China, because the Xinhai Revolution, the revolution of 1911, would overthrow the Qing and end a 2,000-year imperial tradition. This building would come to house some of the most famous scholars in the humanities and social sciences in China in the 19-teens and in the 1920s. And it would come to epitomize for a university that was founded with Chinese money, to be sure, but returned from a Western government, the intersection between West and East in China and in scholarship. The scholars here at Tsinghua University in what would become the Guoshueyuan, the study of the Center of Chinese Studies, would value intersection in the science and humanities, ancient and modern, East and West. Wang Guowei, Liang Qichao, Chen Yingque, Zhao Yuanren, the famous four tutors of the Guoshueyuan, advocated this concept perhaps more than any other group of scholars in Republican China. Liang Qichao taught in this building from 1925 to 1927. Wang Guowei taught classics and history here in the same period. Zhao Yuanren, who had come back from Harvard, where he had studied, entered the Guoshueyuan and founded the study of modern linguistics here. Chen Yingque, who had studied at Harvard in the teens, came here in the 1920s, also to be part of the Guoshueyuan, studying Chinese history using the tools of modern archaeology and Wissenschaft, for he had also been to Berlin, in a way that had not happened in a leading Chinese institution of higher learning before. In this same building behind me, the philosophy department of Tsinghua would be found. Fang Youlang studied with John Dewey in the 1920s, and in 1926 he founded the Department of Philosophy here at Tsinghua. Jiang Tingfu taught here from 1925 to 1935, chaired the Department of History, ran the program on the study of China's international relations. He was a great historian of China's international relations and the study of diplomatic history in Qing and into Republican times. And my teacher, the founder of modern Chinese studies at Harvard, John Fairbank, came to Tsinghua University to study with Jiang Tingfu in 1932. And it was here with Jiang Tingfu that he learned those basic elements of Qing history, of Qing foreign relations, that would allow him to write first his dissertation and then the great book, Trade and Diplomacy on the China Coast, under his real mentor in Chinese history, Jiang Tingfu. We've seen the original Tsinghua Xuetang and the very humble beginnings of what would become this enormous and great international university, a university that now has some 3,000 academic staff, has more than 50 undergraduate programs, has more than 100 programs of doctoral study, has become the leading center of science and engineering in China, most difficult university to get into in all of China, and one of the most difficult in the world to gain admission to, a place that has educated the leaders of China in recent times, Zhu Rongji, Hu Jintao, Xi Jinping, all graduates of Tsinghua University. Tsinghua University, having been and become the great center of science and engineering, is now rediscovering its roots, as it were, in the humanities. And you can see behind me the enormous new theater and great concert hall that are not Xinhua Xuetang, but Xin Xinhua Xuetang, New Tsinghua Hall. So we're in the Xin Tsinghua Xuetang, the new Tsinghua, the Tsinghua of the 21st century, the Tsinghua of Tsinghua's second century, built for its centenary in 2011. As a result, this magnificent theater has exactly 2,011 seats, built with the assistance not of Boxer returned funds, but assistance of a more modern sort, built by the generosity of Tsinghua donors, of Tsinghua alumni in China and overseas who have given generously for this centennial project to put Tsinghua at the center of the arts scene in contemporary Beijing and in China. And to tell us a bit more about Tsinghua and the arts, let me introduce Mr. Cui Kai, who is the Director of Arts Education here at Tsinghua University.
欢迎大家来到新清华学堂。新清华学堂是为了庆祝清华大学建校100周年，于2011年4月我们顺利开张的一个综合性的剧场。目前呢能容纳观众2011名。它是由清华大学建筑学院的李道增院士主持设计的。所有的设计、建造和美工、室内设计都是由清华大学的师生来完成的。然后这个剧场呢，也是由清华大学的4个校友，毕业于80年代以后的清华大学的4位校友捐赠的。所以看它反映了非常明显的清华的特征。这个剧场呢，一共是3层。每一层呢一层有1072个座位，2层呢425个座位，3层呢300多个座位。这样的话呢，我们这个剧场经过1年的试运行呢，目前已经承接了立于中央芭蕾舞团、中国爱乐乐团、中国中央京剧院、中央歌剧院，然后中国国家话剧院以及一些海外的一些演出团体。我们1年有大大小小的演出近100场。我们也迎来了校内外的观众达10万余次。清华大学艺术教育中心呢，成立于上个世纪90年代。我们经过这10几年的努力呢，除了面向学生开设每年高达1万人次的选修课之外，我们也觉得呢，在艺术的殿堂上，让学生们欣赏到高水平的演出，也是我们艺术教育中心的一个主要的职责。那么，经过学校领导的几代领导的深思熟虑吧，也是特别感谢我们广大校友的支持，然后我们有了这座剧院。那经过这1年的运行呢，从学生和老师的反应来看，他们可以较低的票价，基本上学生票是人民币10元、20元、50元、60元。那老师的票价呢，也仅仅是80元和100元。这样的话呢，远远低于他在校外的看的。这样此外呢，他不但是说票价便宜，他还能看到呢国内目前最高水准的演出，比如说中央歌剧院的歌剧《茶花女》《图兰朵》，以及我们中央芭蕾舞团的小美人鱼啊，天鹅湖啊。还有中国国家话剧院的最高水平的演出。此外呢，这也是我们学生展示自己的一个舞台。自从有了这个剧场之后呢，我们每年学生艺术团，包括各个院系的学生节，也在我们剧场里举行，这样也给学生自己展示自己的艺术提供了一个很好的舞台。那我们这个剧场的设计的理念呢，是外观上是皇冠型的。内饰呢是我们孔雀开屏的形状的。我们的寓意呢，就是剧场是艺术殿堂的一个皇冠。所以呢，我们希望同学们在皇冠里欣赏到更高水平的艺术。那欣赏到艺术，欣赏到高水平的演出，对于一个大学培养人有什么作用呢？我们感觉可能这个作用不是急功近利的，不是说在他大学4年，他的艺术水准就能达到一个什么样的高度，而是通过这大学4年或者在研究生、博士生期间，他走进新清华学堂，观看了10几场、20场这种高水平的演出。对于他整个人生的这种兴趣爱好也好，包括他的个人的修养也好，以及他对艺术、对文学的领悟也好，有所提高。这样的话呢，毕竟他对这种舞台上所展现的这种国内的好、国外的也好，高水平的艺术，反映民间的这种生活的情况，包括 古代的一种生活情况。这样的话呢，他对自己的这种人文素质的增加、艺术熏陶，可能对他今后走向工作、走向生活有一种潜移默化的影响，提高了他个人的这种自身的修养。我想他很多科学家，包括很多政治家，都是有很高深的艺术造诣的。很多著名的例子我就不举了，比如说爱因斯坦会拉小提琴啊，对吧？很多这样的例子，就是说我们希望通过他在新清华学堂观看这种高水平的演出，以及他在新清华学堂展示自己的艺术才华，这样的话呢，能对他人生有所更多的帮助。然后我们也希望呢，给我们的老师，以至于周边的社区的群众、社区的居民、海淀区的一些居民、北京市居民带来这种因为作为的一所大学嘛，我们还有一定的作用是服务社会、回馈社会。我们觉得我们除了向我们的校内的师生展示我们的高水平的艺术，我们向周边的其他大学的师生以及我们其他社区的居民，我们也给他们提供了一些购买低端廉价门票的这种机会，他们有机会走进艺术的殿堂，欣赏高水平的演出。也希望美国的朋友们有机会来新清华学堂演出。我们每年也接待于类似于芝加哥大学啊，包括一些纽约的一些大学交响乐团啊，包括我们刚刚接待了华盛顿大学的管乐团，他们来演出了。包括我们未来还会有一些华盛顿大学的一些合唱团啊，包括美国的、欧洲的一些大学的，包括我们还接待过斯图加特大学的合唱团。所以说我们还是希望，我不论是中国朋友还是美国朋友，美国的大学生能有机会不但来观看演出，有机会呢在舞台上展示你们的风采，为清华的师生带来别样的风采。好，谢谢。
This theater would be the envy of any university in the United States, and my colleagues in the arts at Harvard could not have put better, as Mr. Cui put it, what the role of the arts is in a comprehensive education. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
谢谢.
Welcome.
Thank you.